And a top of the morning to everyone. Hello, today is the 12th of July 2018. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. Tomorrow's the 13th, Friday the 13th. Isn't that interesting? A lot of people are superstitious about that particular day. I think most of you probably know that that was the day that the King of France went after the Templars and did some horrible things to them, like Jacques de Molay, who was the leader of the Templars at the time, as far as we know. But as unlucky as that may have been for the Templars, actually 13 is a great number, and so I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. No, we're not going to talk about the Illuminati necessarily today. And like I've said many times, I'm not even so sure that there's a good Illuminati. Jesus, for instance, said that he's the light and life of the world. And that's basically what that means. And of course, you've got the Luciferian side. Everything has its opposite. And so just because something goes by a particular name doesn't mean that it's bad. You look at its fruits. I did a video a while back about the pyramids and the fact that, both sides use the pyramid as a symbol and as actually a high-tech, maybe we don't understand it, but it's a high-tech tool of sorts. So at any rate, I thought I'd open up with that this morning. Again, I want to thank President Trump up front for his pardoning of the Hammonds, who were so unjustly treated by the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and just about everybody else in the federal government. And I'm glad to see that he understood the situation there. So I just wish that, and I hope that with the evidence that is available about all that's happened, especially about the attempt to under color of law, and that's really what it was, even though they have, regulations and things like that, they didn't abide by the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, and protect the Hammonds and those with them in their God-given constitutional rights. And therefore, those three-letter agencies, along with the efforts by HRC, that's Hillary Rodham Clinton, and Harry Reid down, of course, in Nevada, and that entire group were trying to steal those people's land, and actually the three-letter agencies should have protected them, and they did not. So they violated that. Now we've seen throughout this entire thing how corrupt the DOJ and the FBI is, and indeed the entire IC. The very people that we placed our safety and security into their hands, our security into their hands, they have violated our trust and acted criminally and seditiously. And I've heard a lot of discussion lately about treason and what it means. And it's very true that treason has to do with waging war against your own country or giving aid and comfort to the enemy. However, I'm not an attorney, but I was a military officer and a military police officer, very familiar with certain aspects of things. And I will just say that possibly, and I've talked about the treasonous behavior of people in the government, that since 2001, when it became a global war on terror, and that basically everywhere in the world is a battle space. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that. That's just a reason for perpetual warfare. I understand that. However, the dark side was going to use that to go after many conservative people, many Christians, Second Amendment supporters, constitutional supporters, people like that, use it against us and call us treason because of the worldwide war on terror, and say that we were giving aid and comfort to the enemies of the United States by standing up against them. So that's the reason why I say that we can, and I think Trump is kind of going in that direction. He's turning those tables onto them. They have become that thing that they were going to call us. They were going to call us traitors, criminals, seditionists, those types of things. But the treason thing, I realize, is about warring against your own country and giving aid and comfort to the enemy. But in essence, now that we have this worldwide war on terror, is it not true? in my mind it is, that what the people, I'm not saying everyone, but certain collaborators, certain conspirators who are representing foreign interests, and what I mean by foreign includes international corporations, banks, Bilderberg, whatever. Okay, however all of those things can be built in, they are giving aid and comfort to those countries and organizations. China being the big country, possibly Israel the other one. I know that gets a lot of people upset, but it's just a matter of fact. So that's why I say that some of these people could possibly be guilty of, I shouldn't say guilty of treason, could be charged with treason. And certainly, if not that, literally everything underneath that. So we'll see how that plays out, but I wanted to bring that up this morning because, and some very good discussions. I've been really impressed with, I don't know if she's a lawyer, but Ginger McQueen on Twitter she's very calm. And she goes through quite methodically the law, and I'm really impressed with her. And there's another one, I've forgotten her name, Tama something. She's apparently a close associate to, hope I can say this, 0 Hour 1, who has been doing the expose on the Q deal. One of the people that have been doing the expose. And these people, I might say, are IT professionals, that had just had enough there. And Tama, who I guess had been a follower of Q at one time, was burned a few times and then decided to help expose them, and so she's doing that. But she's talked about this treason thing too, and that needs to be approached carefully. And I agree. I'm just saying that based upon the global war on terror, which isn't really a declared war, but we do have the authorization to use military force, which is unconstitutional as far as I'm concerned. But what I'm saying is using those same, I talked about it some time ago, that the wicked will fall in the pit that they dug for others, right? And that's kind of what this revolves around, is that whether it will be used against them, I don't know. I think it would be taking the high road to ensure that they receive their constitutional guarantees. The idea of military tribunals, very true, as Ginger McQueen said, it's basically for the military. However, the other side, like I said before, wasn't going to restrict themselves to the requirements of the Constitution, and they proved it time and time again. So if they had been in charge, it's very likely that it would have gone there, especially if it had a Red Dawn type scenario. Okay, so at any rate, this thing is kind of fluid. I wish that the law was as obeyed by the government as we would like to think, but they've demonstrated that they don't. And even under Trump, there are some problems. But there are these incredible rays of hope, like the freeing of the Hammonds, that is just incredible. And I'm going to start off with that this morning. I know I'm going to talk about the Boston false flag that just happened, or attempted false flag. But I want to go here because I wanted to rejoice in this, because I'm not saying that Trump is Jesus Christ, okay? I'm not saying anything like that. But to be Christ-like, you do the things that Christ would do. To be a good king or a good leader, you would approach what you do the same way that Christ would handle it. Now, a lot of people will point to the border and say, oh, this is terrible. Look what he's doing there. Hey, most people don't understand what's happening there. I was there, I know. Most of these problems were caused in the first place by the past administrations. I know that's always a cop-out for excuses. But the fact of the matter is that Trump's fighting human trafficking and child sex trafficking. That's one of his if not his major goal. I know getting ISIS and all that, but all of that kind of fits in with this human trafficking problem. And much of what happens on the border aren't kids with their real parents. Most of them, so many of them, are being brought up to be sold, to be given away for these different human and child sex trafficking cults and things. And overseas, taking them overseas. A lot of this happens where they don't even come to the U.S. that we have to be careful not to leave these children with people that are just going to take them and trade them off later or sell them. So we have to be cautious. We can't just say, oh, okay, we believe you're the parent of this child. It just can't be done, and put a stop to this. So I'm behind Trump 110% on what he's trying to do on the border because, like I said, I've been there. I understand it. I've seen refugees before. I understand the problems. Let me give you an example. There was, and this is a true story this is a movie based on a true event. It was during the Korean War, and I'm not saying this is the only time it happened. I don't remember the name of the movie. It may have been Pork Chop Hill. That's the one that's kind of standing out on my mind. But the Americans, the Allies, were holding a position, and the North Koreans were using the refugees coming from the combat area. They infiltrated in with the refugees and were trying to penetrate the lines of the Americans. That's real. That's what happens. And that was a real situation in North Korea. And the Americans knew it, and they didn't want to fire on the refugees. I forget how they actually finally resolved that problem, if they even did, before my time. but the movie was interesting. I actually saw it again here maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But at any rate, that's a real problem. And then you add to that the fact that a lot of these children have been sold to traffickers, sometimes by their parents. And then they're going to bring them to the United States for various reasons, and a lot of times they just ship them to other areas in the world. So again, I'm behind Trump that on 100%. But I wanted to show a scripture here, actually a couple of them, about what Trump is doing. There's a lot of way to open dungeons and prisons. We saw him do it with the Hammonds, giving them a pardon. We've seen it with the economy, the way he's trying to set us free from the constraints and restraints of these horrible regulatory agencies that have actually squashed us, and of course all of the trade agreements that have been done. These are all forms of setting up prisons. Okay, you hear Alex Jones, for instance, and I think it's actually probably Paul Joseph Watson's idea of the prison planet. I've also heard it called the panopticon, which is kind of the way I go. In other words, that you're in a prison and you think you're free. The easiest way to keep a slave is to make them think they're free. So opening a person's eyes and letting them see for real what the situation is, and even better, freeing them from the constraints, the restraints, the prison that they're in, be it a real prison like the Hammonds were in or these others, that's a sign of a godly king, a king or a leader who rules, who leads with godliness. And so I wanted to I won't read these scriptures. I just want you to go look at them. And I want to say that Trump exemplifies in so much of, and I'm not idolizing him. I'm hard on him, and I'll be hard on him again if I need to. I think I need a drink here. Hold on just a second. I'll have to tell you if I've never told you where I learned to drink coffee, I'll have to tell you about that. He's a man, but he's doing these things, and I think he's righteous. Now, again, I have some problems, but I don't really need to go there today. Let me give you these scriptures, and you can go read them, and I'll just kind of give you an idea of what they are. Isaiah 42, verse 7. Isaiah 51, 14. Isaiah 49, 9. And then, of course, all the statements in the New Testament that Jesus made about being free, and the truth will set you free, and all of those things that he exemplifies there. But if you go to these scriptures, it talks about opening the eyes of the blind and setting free those who sit in dark prisons. Now, of course, allegorically, people will say that's talking about Jesus. That's his job. But, as I often say, taking Jesus Christ, that name upon yourself, you are to become like him. You are to exemplify his attributes. And I've said it before. Paul said that, and I'm not a great follower of Paul, the apostle, for a lot of reasons. Those who have read my book, The Crimson Thread, will kind of understand the basis for that. But regardless of that, the situation with Paul is that Jesus found himself in the form of God and thought it not robbery to make himself equal to God. And the scripture that says that Jesus is the heir of all that the Father has, and we are joint heirs with him. So if you're a Bible student, if you study those things, you see that basically what you do when you get baptized or you become a Christian, or even if you're not, if you just want to exemplify those attributes because that's who you are, that's your personality, then you're doing Christ-like things. And in this situation here, anyone who helps to open the eyes of others, and not for deceitful reasons, right, which we'll get into later, open the eyes of the blind and set free those who sit in dark prisons. Okay, I think those are just incredible to see that Trump is actually doing that. And I expect him to do a lot more. I think a lot more is coming in that regard because our justice system, as I mentioned in a video the other day, is broken totally. And it's not broken in that it's not efficient, although that's true too. It's broken because it's corrupt, and the American people have become its enemy, have become its target, rather than the real criminals. And the Bundy situation, the Hammond situation, and all that was around that was so, just revealed so much about what it was. That's why I went to Bundy Ranch. That's why I was there. I didn't go to Malheur with the Hammonds. I felt for them. I supported their stand in what they were trying to do there. They actually did they were trying to do a controlled burn to keep the BLM burn that started from taking over their property. And the BLM burned, I think it was hundreds or thousands of acres that they weren't supposed to burn up there, including a house. And this has happened in other places. But they're immune, right? But the Hammonds burn 100 acres trying to keep the fire that the BLM started from coming on their land, and they arrest them. But that was because they wanted their property for the uranium. So when you look at the entire thing there, you realize that this was a setup on the Hammonds. So at any rate, freeing the people in dark prisons, and I'll just mention Isaiah 51, also 14, because this is good. The captive will soon be freed. He will not die in the dungeon. I mean, that makes me rejoice. However, all the different types of dungeons and prisons that have been set up to free those who are innocent that have been placed in these situations that keep them captive, be it in their mind, like the New World Order trying to fool us, right? The MSM trying to keep us dumb, the IC trying to keep us dumb and captive, or really thrown in prison like the Hammonds. All of that is related. So open the eyes of the blind, unstop their ears to hear. It's not just healing those who are literally blind or deaf. It's talking about giving them the Spirit of God so that they can see their situation, so they can see the truth. I could spend a lot of time on the scriptures, but I'll leave it at there, okay? Okay, let's jump to, one more thing before I get on Boston. I saw an article by Mike Adams this morning, and I was really I was absolutely amazed. We've seen health places, Mike Adams, Alex Jones on InfoWars, and several others. They talk about colloidal silver and its benefits, that it's very much like an antibiotic without all the bad side effects. And this, colloidal silver has been around in the health community for a long time, the natural health people. But Mike Adams pointed out this morning that NASA issues colloidal silver in space as an antibiotic. They can't do it on Earth. They can't give it to them on Earth because the FDA says no. Can you believe this? But once they're in space, the FDA has no authority. So colloidal silver is issued to the NASA astronauts as an antibiotic. Isn't that just... The hypocrisy of our government is just unbelievable at times. But this was a testament of colloidal silver. Now, I know the flat earthers out there, and those people will say, oh, there's no space, that doesn't really exist. Well, okay, I'm not going to argue those points. The bottom line is, because they have some good arguments for one thing, but the bottom line is what's happening. Okay, whether you believe that the Earth is a globe or a flat plane or that there's water above and below, or that there's, just this in the mind of God, whatever. The point is that NASA issues colloidal silver to its people who are at least in the, the low Earth orbit, or traversing, or whatever you want to call it. So we won't get into that argument here. That's not my purpose. Okay. All right. Let me see if there's anything else here I want to talk about before I go. Like I said, some people say, well, that's talking about Jesus and the spirit prisons, but it's the characteristic, it's the attribute of doing that's important. Wherever Jesus did, it doesn't matter. Okay, let me just make sure I haven't forgotten anything here that I want to do. Okay, yeah, I think so. All right, so let's talk about the Boston situation. I'm sure you all have heard about it. There was his name didn't sound Islamic, but that's not necessarily the case. They take new names when you convert to Islam, or anyway, you can have two different names, one that's Islamic and one that isn't. And so that may be the case here, or whatever. You may just be a recent convert. I don't know all the details. But you heard the story, right? A bomb went off. The police get there. They find weapons and ammunition, and bomb-making materials. And apparently, this guy was assembling a bomb, and he did something wrong, and it blew up. And he's in the hospital now, I guess. Well, this was in Boston, and of course, the first thing we consider is that this is a terrorist that's going to operate. That's what the normal mind should think. That's you look at the pieces of evidence even at that stage, and that's at least where you should begin. Why? Because even if it's false, you have to start with that premise and then disprove it. Instead, what does the FBI and the Boston Police Department do? They come out and they say it's not terror related. They haven't even started the investigation yet. So, when I did my Boston bombing expose back in 2013, anybody who followed that, and some of you will remember this, you can go back and look at the series if you want. I talked about one of the glaring evidences that this was a false flag, and that the FBI knew what was happening, and the CIA, and that it may have actually been a war in the government for power. That's another story here. I don't want to get into that, but the fact of the matter is that you remember that the Tsarnaev brothers were passing a Lord & Taylor clothing store, if I remember right. I think it was a Lord & Taylor, and they were caught on the camera on the sidewalk. And the special agent in charge up there in Boston said, we're going to appeal to the American people to help us identify these two guys, when they already knew who they were because they were their informants. They had worked with them before, as well as had the CIA. Actually, they were trying to play ignorant of who was doing it, when in actuality what the FBI did is actually bring attention to the fact that they really knew who these people were. They tried to play dumb for the masses of the public, but most of us who were paying attention, and that was very few of us actually, understood what had happened there. So we've seen the FBI involved in that, the World Trade Center bombings of 93, the Garland shooting, okay, and we could name just so many other things. I don't want to take a lot of time on that, but the habits and the tactics of the FBI, if you look even beneath, just below the first surface, you can see that they're corrupt, that they actually foment a lot of these things. And what they'll do is they'll find somebody who's stupid, I hate to put it that way, but they have no intention of doing it, but they'll actually give them the stuff and push them along, and the person might have no intent. I saw this actually happen once. I won't go into the details of when or what it was, but at any rate, and they cultivated it to make it happen, not to monitor the person to see if they're actually criminal, but to give them the tools so that they can make an arrest. They choreograph the thing out so they can make an arrest. It's really disgusting. Well, at any rate, I'm not sure that that's what happened this time, because the guy actually had some stuff. My concern is that they're not saying we're considering it terrorism until we eliminate that possibility. That's how all of these should be addressed, and they're not. At least not when they talk to the public. The name didn't come out right away. It took Laura Loomer and a few other people to finally figure out that this guy was Islamicist. And then the good point that Laura makes, that they're trying to say that he was just playing, the authorities are just, I hate to say authorities, the FBI and the police are just saying, oh, he was just playing with some chemicals and had an accidental explosion. Nah. You know, here we go with Las Vegas again. You know, the FBI cultivated the Las Vegas thing. They were at least there to allow, at least this aspect of the FBI, this part of the bat of the IC. If you listen to Shepard Ambulis or Jake Morphonios or Laura Loomer, all of the same flag, the warning signs, the red flags are there. The FBI was probably there in Vegas for various reasons, but you can bet that one of them was to help cover up this massive shooting, which was actually going to be an assassination plot against whom? Most likely Prince Salman. A lot of people say, oh, he really wasn't there. Regardless, and President Trump. We've talked about from the beginning that Trump was apparently in Vegas at that time, unbeknownst to most everybody. Whether that's true or not, that was the plan. And the FBI, which has been trying to unseat Trump in a coup d'etat, thought they might assist in an assassination plot there, and if they kill, a few hundred Americans, no big deal. Yes, I'm going to accuse them of that. And I think the evidence would suggest it. I think at least if we start with that premise, we can disprove it rather than just accepting the official story. And that goes the same for this recent situation that's in Boston. Yeah, they're going to cover that up because I think it was a false flag. I think all of the pieces are there that this was going to be an attack and a false flag. He was probably going to have some assistance with some other people, very likely, and do another bombing and mass killing in Boston, and they'd use that for whatever. Take attention off of all the good things Trump is doing, go after the Second Amendment, whatever, pass more terrorist legislation, who knows? The FBI is corrupt. It's not incompetent. It's corrupt. It's incompetent when it carries out these tactics because sometimes they're using pretty low grade people, let me put it that way, who can't really accomplish what they want because they need them that low. They don't want to burn their good smart assets, the guys that are really intelligent, so they try to keep it down low. But this is your Stasi police state, your state police, secret police, Stasi's secret police. That's who the FBI is, and it needs to be reined in. And a lot of us have called for it already during this whole thing with the Trump deal and the Russian collusion and all that. If you've been following that, even members of Judicial Watch have called for the FBI to be broken up, just like JFK said about the CIA, and that the U.S. Here we go. I'm just repeating what I think and what I've heard other people in the know who have all of the expertise to say this, that the U.S. Marshals, the DHS, with the support of the DOD, probably the USMC, should raid the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, etc. And I've been calling for that for a long time. We can't fix this thing by voting alone, and I've already talked about that. I love Dan Bongino, but I really don't think that Trump can do it that way. If he can, great. He's the guy in charge. He's leading, okay. But I don't think it's going to happen unless he gets real aggressive, real aggressive. So I just wanted to touch on that FBI thing this morning because I do think it's so important. It looks like I'm having some problems in the transmission. Hopefully at least the sound is coming through. Okay, let me see what else I wanted to talk about here. NATO. Wow. Trump is just amazing to me. He really does take center stage. He is the guy when he walks into the room, everybody pays attention. And he knows what the EU's been about. And I don't want to talk about all the things that he's doing on NATO, but the big thing that's kind of the elephant in the room. I thought this was so superb. I don't like NATO. I don't like the UN. And the EU, of course, is an evil institution. We've seen how that operates. But Trump goes over there and he says to these people, he says, look, first of all, you're not paying your bills, or at least we're paying for all of it, and you should pay for more of it. But here was the kicker, and this was just so good. Most of you already know it, but I just have to give it a call out. Trump says, tell me this, okay? You want us to protect you against Russia. That's really not a threat any longer anyway. It is China that's the threat. It's not Russia. Russia doesn't want this baloney, okay? They don't. I'm not saying there aren't bad people there, but most of them are not, and they just want their country to prosper, and they don't want people constantly surrounding them, banging on the door trying to take them out, and that's what's been happening with the West, with all the maneuvers, as I've showed you on the map several times. What's going on there? I'd be concerned too. We don't allow it, Look what we did to Cuba. Look what we're talking about with Venezuela. We don't like this encroachment in our hemisphere, and so, and Russia has a good reason to, and we should understand that, knowing how corrupt the Western Anglo-American alliance is. Basically, the New World Order. The Wall Streeters, the New York lawyers and bankers, and the D.C. swamp. Okay? And the pedophiles in L.A. that spread out everywhere, right? Okay. So anyway, Trump says, look, you say that you need protection against Russia, but you're buying your fuel from Russia. You're paying them billions and saying that you need us to protect you from them. Well, why don't you go the other way around? What are you doing here? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And it was, just the way he did it was just so brilliant. And it's true. It's logical. And it's a sham. It proves that NATO is a sham. Because if they were really concerned about Russia invading them, they wouldn't be helping them economically. Right? Does that make sense? So again, we see that the entire military-industrial complex, which includes NATO, is a sham. They create these conflicts, okay, the Hegelian dialectic thing. They create these conflicts and then offer a solution. And the solution, of course, is money and military might, preparing for war. It's one thing to prepare for war, but this is all a sham. It's so much of it's obvious, and Trump just expertly exposed it. I was just amazed. So I got to tell you, I've been hard on Trump, and I will continue to be on it. And I know he probably doesn't listen to a word I say, but at least it might filter through, the waves, be it by word of mouth or ear, and influence somebody to speak to him or whatever. And I think that's what we should all do. We should all be talking about how we feel things should go. This government needs to be reined in. Our government needs to be reined in. I saw Chris Ann Hall gave an excellent thing the other day where she talks about how the government is just out of control big. They filed how many more bills this term? And how many of those are nothing more than just to bind the people down? Remember, it's supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. And of course, those people that are controlling, especially the intelligence community, have it the other way around. They think that they're the government and that they can dictate to us. And this was supposed to be an experiment in freedom and in liberty, and they've tried to squash it from the very beginning. And we still have some really nasty ties to the Crown in Britain. But I'm not going to get into all that. Some of you who are studying it will know what I'm talking about. Able Danger, Field McConnell brings all that out. And that reminds me, isn't that great? And of course, I did those 2 short videos about the Hammonds being released. And also, Field McConnell finally got a visa for his wife, who's a British citizen, to come to America. They've been separated by the Obama administration, not allowing them to come in. It was a really a nasty thing to do do to Field and his wife. It was persecution. And Christine Marcy, McConnell's sister, had a lot to do with that, and has a lot to do with the SES and the corruption in government and everything that's out of control there. And he would point to, Field McConnell has pointed to the evidence of the pedophile rings there. So it's not just from the WikiLeaks, and it's not just from David Seaman when he talks about Pizzagate as trying to explain that it's the whole thing. The symbols of the pedophilia and all that are real. Lee Stranahan the other day in some of his presentations in his debate with this Dustin Nemos guy, which, yes, we're going to talk about in a minute. He said, look, there are no real code words that I've seen the FBI put out. And he's right about that. I don't think I have either. But the symbols are there, and he admitted that those symbols have been used. But again, as I pointed out a long time ago, just because a symbol is used by somebody doesn't mean that they're a boy lover or a pedophile. Sometimes symbols are absconded, are commandeered by the bad side. For instance, the rainbow, for instance, the pyramid, and I've already talked about that. So some of these designs may not necessarily mean just because somebody's using it that they are that. Remember, you got to look at all the evidence. You got to put all the fruits of their activities together and see where they are. Oh, yes, okay. So, okay, I think we covered all that. We got the NATO thing. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go to this. Wow, we're having lots of internet connection problems. I ask your forgiveness on that. It's just one of those things. Like I said, we're pretty much still in the Stone Age here in a lot of ways. I've talked about satellites and some other stuff, but I don't think it'd fix it. So we'll just have to deal with it and hope for the best. Or it might be somebody else messing with it. Who knows? Because of the things that I'm talking about. Okay, I've told you about the problems with Q, and I wanted to avoid it for a long time, but it really got to the point where I couldn't avoid it any longer. I had the concept starting in January, and I even said this to B when I had the conversation. That actually was a text conversation, but I said, look, I don't like what's going on here. I'm very suspicious of these things, but I don't want to interfere with the Q mission of helping people to understand what's going on in the world if that's what they continue to do. Although there had already been some problems by December where they weren't doing that it became this other thing, and I was recognizing that, and I've told you about it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time about the history. A lot of people have come into the Q thing subsequent to people like Isaac Green and myself and others. And we were there pretty much at the beginning and saw the thing happen. And my experience and all of that at first, and I know this is a problem with some people who, I won't mention their names, but that, there are pros and cons, right? That there are those who say, there was evidence of intelligence behind real, intelligence agencies or members of it behind the Q thing from the beginning. And then there were those who said that there weren't. And there's been this back and forth on that. But I was one of those that looked at it and said, okay, I know that intelligence agencies will use, like newspapers, they'll put different things in there to send messages to operatives. And I entertained the idea, of course, that Trump possibly could be allowing somebody not to spill intelligence information, but to bring up things to get people to question. I didn't find a problem with that. But there were some initial things that made me concerned. So I always, even though I went along with a lot of what was happening, I kept a watchful eye. And then, as most of you know, by Thanksgiving and certainly by January, I was out. But I was hoping that it would continue without turning more into a cultic type of aggressive, a persecutorial organization. I was hoping that it wouldn't, but all the signs were telling me that it was. So, of course, I did finally call that out and saying that it was happening. They attacked a lot of good patriots. saying that they were one of the big things is that these patriots are making money, they're profiting off of Q. So that, the problem is that in reality, you see the Alinsky tactic here. They wanted to make sure that they were cornering the market. It's very likely that the CIA, when they saw that the MSM, right, was starting to fail, they realized that they had to get into the internet and try to get that market share. Remember, the CIA is run by lawyers and bankers. That was started by Wall Street. So they're thinking profits and control. They're thinking about monopolies. Do you understand that? That's what all this pushing democracy around the world is, which isn't what we are anyway. We're a constitutional republic. It's a hostile takeover for profit. That's really what it is. That's where the bottom line of all of this sits. I hope you understand that. So they saw that the MSM was losing its influence amongst a very large group of people. And so they said, well, where are they going? And they saw that they were going to the internet, to these different independent news services, some of which are legitimate, some are not, but look at the MSM. Look at MSNBC and CNN compared to Fox, which Fox isn't that great either, but you're going to have those types of dichotomies also in the alternative media, in the media on the web. But buyer beware. Aren't we a country of buyer beware? Yeah, we put up some consumer protections, but people have to make their own decisions in the end anyway. Boy, I sure diverge a lot. Okay, so I saw all of this happening, and then I saw them attacking these patriots, saying they're profiteering from Q. But I could also see that Q was profiteering from Q. I mean, there were people, I'm not going to mention names, they were selling T-shirts just like 0 Hour One and Uni of Unirock have said that the Q people were also profiting. Now again, I'm not against the profit idea. If you're doing something, you need to operate it so that you can get money to run it. But if Q is a government insider close to President Trump, why would they be concerned about creating a market? Have you ever thought about that? Why? Why would they need that kind of support? Oh, well, okay. I could possibly see Trump saying, okay, here's the battle plan, go with it, and then they build it from there. Okay. But to attack other patriots in the process, to steal the market share of people that are already behind Trump, ladies and gentlemen, that's illogical. That's illogical. So I started to see these things, and I said, no, this is not from Trump. There were other things. I talked about the DEFCON 1 thing, that would never happen with military people in charge of the Q deal. That would never, ever have happened in the way that it did. This thing progressed. We started seeing these attacks against true patriots. At that point in time, we started to dig into Q a lot. I talked to Baruch the Scribe here on this channel on a live stream, and he gave us some insight there. Now, Baruch is still very much with Q as it started out. I'm not going to go there. Okay, I don't want to go there. I want to talk about what's happened since January 7th. So what occurred was these attacks started happening by Q himself too. There are people who say, oh, Q never did that. Oh, yes, he did. And I'm not here to go through all the proofs of what I'm saying. You go check it out. Yeah, actually, Unirock's done most of this, and that's one of the reasons why I don't want to spend time on it. He did an extensive expose, as did 0 Hour One, Nathan Stoltman of Lift the Veil, which I've already talked about, Isaac Green, and there have been others. David Seaman has gotten into it as well, kind of from a different angle. But the point is, all the evidence is there about what this was about, and it had nothing to do with Trump. Nothing to do with Trump whatsoever. Okay, it's a way for people to talk and learn things. Well, as Ginger McQueen pointed out the other day in a Periscope that she did live, it was either Praying Medic or another of the folks there were saying that actually it may have been Imperator Rex, which is these sages are a whole other issue as well. But the basic thing was that they would give this information out. Let me see if I can explain this. I kind of lost my train of thought there. That's easy to do when you try to pull too much stuff in. Until that comes back in my head, let me just say that from there were some problems, okay? And we recognized that, and we decided that we needed to get into it and start tearing it apart. So there were a number of people who approached, who had been insiders in the Q thing, who came to people like UniRock, 0 Hour One, and started to give information. And you say, well, how do you know who those people are? There are ways to vet that. And I'm not going to talk about means and that kind of stuff. The way that was done. But at any rate, it was done. We found out a lot of information. We found out, for instance, Monograph got in. I'm kind of throwing all this at you. Monograph, Able Danger kind of took it from the technical side, and they uncovered the IPs and the digital path of where these people, how they linked up, and who were behind it. We found connections to, I'm just going to be very general here, to intelligence associates in Britain and in the United States. Not the good side. I'm not saying that these are people in the government that are helping to get out the good information. That's not what's going on here. These were manipulative, social engineering type of things that were going on, and they tied right into these groups and right into Patriot Soapbox and the CBTS, CBTS boards. In other words, the people that have now pretty much become known. And we found out that not only were they in a huge marketing campaign, and they didn't, and again, the money thing is kind of you got to balance this out a little bit. It's not bad to make money. What's bad is that you make money by deceiving people. The number one deception being, we've got an inside track with President Trump. We've got an insider who's giving us this information. Yet their posts were becoming more of cheerleaders for a junior varsity, actually not even junior varsity, a junior high school team. Kind of just rah, get out there and do your thing, and not really any information. And a lot of the information, as Lee Stranahan pointed out, was in fact after these things occurred, or they were good guesses. There was a big discussion about the Lord's Prayer change and all that, which happened prior to Q pointing it out. And then he tried to take credit for it. But at any rate, all of these things that happened pretty much caused people on the inside of Q and elsewhere to take a harder look. And as 0 Hour One has stated, yes, I do believe that I'm not saying I like the FBI, I don't, but sometimes they have to do the right thing, and sometimes they do the right thing. And in this case, I think that they are looking into Q. There's some, and the people in Patriot Soapbox and the Calm Before the Storm board, yeah, I think they are doing it at this point. We have, as some of you know, over the last little while, the autists who came out of Q, or just autists out there in general, these researchers who were probably part of the Anons who were working on the boards, the researchers, realized how bad this thing was. For instance, Tracy Beans got out of it, right? And they started to look at the people that are controlling, who are the upper guys, the really loud ones. Now, not all of them. Like I said, there's some exceptions to that, and I'm not going to comment on the intents of the people that are still upholding Q so highly, especially considering who they are. I'm questioning as to why that is. But it probably has to do with money, probably income. But I'm not going to judge that at this point. I'm going to go to the people that these people are part of the inside too, but the ones that we paid attention to, that we really looked at, were the ones that are the most vocal and that have been pushed. And we're obviously in control in one sort or another. And you already know that the one known as Pamphlet, and we know his real name. I'm not going to put it out here. You can find it on Twitter if you want. Probably Google it, because that information is now out there. we found out that, and I'm not a doxer, okay? That's not what I'm about. I'm about, finding out intent. And so the intent here was pretty obvious after we looked into it, that there was this effort to start first of all, a misinformation, disinformation campaign. They'll accuse us of that, of course, even though we've been around a lot longer than they have. But that they basically were being fed information by someone, and we're pretty sure we know who that was, because of its ties to the Twitter keys, the Q's ties to the Twitter keys, the digital pathways, and the Washington Pundit, and the person we know as B. And, of course, like Able Danger showed, that they had ties to Kinetic with their social engineering appliance in the UK. And there's some others, too. There was a place up in Washington State as well. The point is, we could see that these people were being fed information, and then they would apparently post these things themselves as if it's Q. And Pamphlet Anon, the person that we know as Pamphlet Anon, got caught doing that 5 times, okay? And then tried to explain it away. Now, something about cults is you can't convince those who believe not to believe anymore. It just doesn't happen. I've been there. I've seen it. The harder you try to explain something to somebody, the more rock solid they get in their position, because they can't be wrong. People want to be right. They don't want to get right. And they'll say, well, you guys are like that. No, I've been there. I've already looked at it. I opened up myself to it, and I looked at it, as did Isaac Green. I gave it its chance, and it failed. Okay? Because I try to approach it, as Lee Stranahan says, from a logical point of view. All right? Not just from a belief. A lot of these Q people talk about faith, faith, faith. Well, faith is the substance of things hoped for. In other words, something has to happen. Where are the arrests? The evidence of things unseen. Well, you're not getting much. You got a few coincidences, some good guesses, maybe some prior knowledge, but that could probably be gleaned anyway. And certainly if you have insiders that are trying to destroy MAGA and Trump and the Trump base that was responsible for getting him elected, which is what Q turned into, is attacking those people. So we found out about Pamphlet, and I'll just tell you that they checked into him a little bit more, and they found out he does have a rather shady background. I'll just put it that way. Well, people say, well, Roy Potter, you have shady background. No, I never did anything of taking advantage of people. Yes, I have relationships that are nobody's business. Certainly no pedophile. I'm definitely not one of those. I like grown women. But the point is that these things were nefarious, okay? Really, truly nefarious. I won't go into any detail on that. You can look that up yourself. Again, Unirock, 0 Hour 1, Nathan Stoltman of Lift the Veil, Isaac Green, etc. David Seaman. Okay. Well, a guy by the name of Dustin Ninmos, that's his Twitter name, became very active. Obviously, was brought in to the inside of the CBTS Patriot Soapbox Inner Circle, working on a Discord channel to plan all this stuff and then push it out through Patriot Soapbox, etc. So this guy became kind of like what Tracy Beans had been before. He kind of took over her position in being the public face of this, more so as far as explaining it than Pamphlet Anon. Now there's some others, Praying Medic too, and I don't want to go after Praying Medic. That's not my intent, although apparently 0 Hour 1 knows him personally and is very upset, and rightly so, about what's happening here because of the deceit involved. Not the money making even. I mean, if you're taking money from old ladies and causing them not to be able to make their house payments and stuff like that, that's wrong. That's deceitful. That's certainly not Christian. But that's an area that I can't address right now. I want to go after this other thing. So this Dustin Ninmos character, young guy, I've seen his type before. As soon as I saw him, I went, this guy's trouble. And I knew that eventually there would be something really bad come out of him. And I'll just say professional insight, okay? Cops do have this sixth sense. And they still have to prove, they have to come up with the evidence and the proof, but it's what gets them looking in the first place. And I saw this guy and I said, he's got all the characteristics of a problem, of real trouble. So, he's been very active in promoting Q, and he's on YouTube as well with some presentations. Twitter is where most of the activity with Q takes place, although there are these YouTube videos that come out like Patriot Soapbox and Nemos and those, Praying Medic, etc. But that's to augment the efforts that are being really made on Twitter. They don't get on Facebook because Facebook won't allow what they're doing, which should tell you something. But at any rate, so this Dustin Nemos guy is out there, and these things are happening. Well, UniRock says, well, come and, let's have a debate. Well, the fact of the matter is that Dustin Nemos put it off, came up with all these excuses, but was blaming UniRock for not holding the debate. That's not where the problem was. The problem was with Dustin. He was saying that he wanted time to get ready and all that. Not to script his debate. No, that's not what he's doing. Just, he had to have time to get ready, because he was afraid. And he even said, he says, you're going to be the one, Uni, that's going to script this and do the wrong thing. Uni's never done the wrong thing, as far as I can tell. He admits what he's about. He's about uncovering fraud and deception. He's about logically investigating claims, and he's very good at it, and his team is very good at it. He's a little unorthodox in his presentation, but that's what makes him, interesting. Anyway, so this Dustin Nemos guy is kind of backs off the thing with this debate with Uni. Well, then Lee Stranahan comes out and says some things, and then Q basically brings Stranahan up, quotes some of his stuff. And Stranahan says, Q's paying attention to me. Why is that? Well, he's been watching Q for a while anyway. And so they're hoping, obviously, to get a big guy like Lee on their side. That would really give credence to their claims, right? They don't know Lee very well. So Lee prepares, and he's starting to say, well, this is even before he knows he's going to do the debate. Q is disinfo. Q's proofs are ridiculous. They don't work, and this is the reason why. The few times that they did were either coincidences or they were fed the information prior to by somebody, true, but it wasn't to benefit Trump. It was to hook people into Q. That was the purpose of it. And so Lee was basically exposing what the problems were with Q and its real obvious pathway, what they were actually up to, which was principally destroying, not helping Trump, but to set him up. It's like I called it the other day, political waterboarding. They're throwing so much stuff at you that you get so focused on those things that you don't look at the others and that you don't become active. Plus the fact that they're building the opposition, the Obama Foundation, HRC, Media Matters, the CIA, whoever, are building Q up to such an extent that then at the right time, they'll pull the rug out from underneath it, and all those who have attached themselves to Q will go down, and it'll make Trump and the MAGA movement look very bad. That's the battle plan. That's what was going to happen. I'm not saying Pamphlet Anand knew that. He doesn't. I don't think he's that smart. And this Dustin Nemos guy, that's not his real name, of course. He thought he was real smart too until he met up with Stranahan. He thinks he won the debate. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as that Lee was extracting information from Dustin Nemos, so he didn't even realize it. That's what Lee was doing. Lee was using it as getting more information so that he could logically analyze Q and that entire thing. That's what Lee was about. He wasn't even concerned about winning the debate. He was getting intelligence information. He was ringing Dustin out for info. That's what was going on. Excellent tactic by Lee. So at any rate, after this supposed debate with Lee, this Dustin Nemos starts to really badmouth Lee and those who supported Lee and that kind of thing. In other words, he's not a gracious debater. He's what he is he's a selfish little brat. That's what he is, and we could tell that. And he had some other motives. We weren't sure what they were, All of the telltale signs leading us to knowing that there was something bad there were obvious, but we still didn't know what they were until the autists started digging. The previous insiders to Q, etc., the CBTS boards, all of that. Nemos calls up Unirock and basically insults Unirock's wife, girlfriend, however you want to look at that, Rachel, really attacks her mercilessly, totally unnecessary, but it shows how unstable he is, and then starts attacking other people as well. Well, that was the final straw, and these people really start digging in, and you can go to Unirock's channel, you can go to 0 Hour One's channel. I imagine Isaac Green will probably have something out on it today. I don't want to steal their thunder, primarily because, again, I'm a commentator, I'm an expositor, I don't consider myself a journalist. I just want to talk about the generalities of what's happening and kind of compact it all into, a summary, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Exposing it, expositing it, right? So that you can go and check things out for yourself. What Q was supposedly about in the first place, right? The Socratic method, but then it became you either believe this, what we're telling you, or you're a betrayer, you're a traitor, you're a blasphemer, whatever. I'm not going to do that, okay? So at any rate, they did this checking in on this Nemos character, this Dustin Nemos, and they found his real name. They found out a really, really bad criminal background. I mean, it's really, really bad. Go check it out. I will just tell you that if these are the type of people that are surrounding Q on the inner circle, and I'm not even talking about the people on the outside, who are trying to take advantage of it, or who want to spread information. They think they're spreading information. Not all of them are there. And again, I don't want to name anybody, but there's some really shady characters out there that I thought were decent, and I'm finding out that's not the case. But Dustin Nemos was definitely a problem, and he's what I would consider dang close to, if not in fact, a career criminal. And it's very possible, as 0 Hour One said, the evidence is suggesting, I'm not saying it's true, I'm not saying it's a fact, but there's evidence to suggest that not only was the Patriot soapbox and that whole deal designed to make money off of a deceitful claim, and as I said, also to destroy the true the time tried and proven Trump true patriots, which is also what they've tried to do. Especially if we didn't come to their side and way of thinking. But there's also another possibility, and this is what it suggests. I'm not saying it's absolutely true at this point, but I think that the circumstantial evidence points to it, that it is also being used to purchase and probably traffic in contraband of various types. I'll just put it that way. So all of you who have been taking part in that have been assisting not only in the deception, but in some other really, really bad stuff, supporting some really bad stuff. And I think now that's why 1 Hour this morning came out and said, or maybe it was last night, and said that they now know that feds are looking at it. And I'm not saying I like the feds. Again, they're primarily the cause of all this if you look at the bottom line. But I think that this is going to be revealed before too long. I understand that they haven't, on the 8chan, they haven't actually posted anything since July 4th. I don't know that for a fact. I don't look at Q. I don't follow it. I've told you that before. But I do have all this information that comes to me from the periphery. So that's kind of where things are. I expect that there will be more attacks against people who are exposing Q for what it really is. And, of course, they're going to say, and they've prepped all of this. And Lee Stranahan kind of pointed out, he said, look, and I said this early on too, this information is necessary. Why? Because then you have plausible deniability. If something doesn't come true in one of your predictions, you can say, well, that was disinformation for intelligence purposes. They're not an intelligence agency. They have no contact with Trump or intelligence agencies. At the most, they had somebody who was in the feeds that saw some things happening and was concerned about what was happening in the world and started to type those informations to get people talking. That's the most it was. The most it was. So they used disinformation as necessary in order to be able to stop any arguments that their predictions are incorrect. They say that there will be those that will come and try to divide us. Try they will, fail they will, or however that goes. Well, that's only because they're trying to preempt any criticism. That's what that's about. Be careful who you follow. That's very cultic behavior to make sure that you tell them you must listen to us and nobody else. It's very cultic, very Jim Jonesish, Jonesish, whatever. From Guyana, the poisoning, the cyanide and all that, and the Kool-Aid, where the idea of drinking Kool-Aid came from. To say, be careful who you follow, means you pay attention to us. It's basically the same thing that, in the same vein that President Bush said when he said, if you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. In other words, if you don't go along with the New World Order, they're going to consider you a terrorist. That's really what was saying. And so in the Q thing, it's that if you don't go along with us, we're going to consider you, apostates. That's what cultic behavior is. So I've been a little vague on the specifics on the individuals involved, and there are others. I'm really, I'm sorry that it's gone this far, but there are a lot of people out there who are tied into it that I have not mentioned that I think are going to find themselves in some hot water because they won't admit. I wish Tracy Beans would just come out and say what really happened, but she's backed off of it. She doesn't want to talk about it at all. I can't say I blame her. I've defended her, but I do wish that she would come clean about what happened in that situation. There are about 2 or 3 others that I've had some close association with over the last few months. Actually, it was prior to my totally dropping out. But then I'm familiar with a couple of others and their backgrounds. And wow. Not that they have bad backgrounds, but that the fact that they're involved in this makes me wonder, at this point, what their true motivations are. And again, I'm not going to name names. I'm not into that. The only people I wanted to name are the ones that I have today. And I didn't give you Pamphlet Annon's real name, but it's out there. I'll tell you what, I'll give you his initials. How's that? Why do I do it that way? Well, primarily because, again, you guys need to check these things out on your own. It's really necessary that you do it on your own. That way we're doing the Socratic method and, don't tell me I misplaced it. I've got so much information now. This is just, it's really out of control. It really is. Okay, his initials are JCR. JCR. That's Pamphlet Annon JCR. When you find out all the stuff that is out there about him, and especially about Dustin Nemos and what his real name is, I'll give you his initials too. His initials are DCK. Okay, so when you find it, you'll know that you've got that information. I'm not into doxing, but I'm not liking the criminal, what is apparently looking like criminal behavior surrounding this entire thing, and certainly what the nasty things that they've done to good, long-standing patriots. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but we don't do it to take advantage of you. We do it because they're honest mistakes. That's different than plotting and planning to take your money using deceitful claims like we represent the president or we have close ties to the president. Okay? And again, like I said, this whole thing was designed to take down an aspect of the MAGA, cause problems for Trump at the right time. They would sink Q and take all of those with them and all the people that they could tie to Trump. Okay, that was, it was the sinking of the Maine, really, is what it is. If you know that history, that's what it was going to be. It was going to be a false flag sinking of the Maine to take out as many Trump supporters and to make it tough on him. I don't know if it was going to happen at the midterms. Probably. That's kind of what it looks like now from the timetable, but certainly by the election in 2020. And finally, it looks like it was being used to gather funds for other criminal behavior, and I'll just leave it at that. You guys go search it and find it out for yourselves. All right, well, let's go to the chat. I guess it's about time for that. Sorry, I forgot about Ginger McQueen's statement about what they were saying there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but she made some. It was on a Periscope. If you could go to her Periscope, her Twitter account. It's Ginger McQueen, at Ginger McQueen, and you can listen to it. It was done like Sunday night, Monday, somewhere in the last few days. Excellent presentation. Boy, she controls her emotions and her delivery. She's not like me. She doesn't blow up. She was saying she does, but I look back on some of her other things and I couldn't find any of her losing her temper or anything like that. Maybe it happens. Okay. Yeah, trolls are everywhere. And again, you might wonder, that's Robin Brown saying that. Let me just say this. Personal opinions, okay, you got to understand something. Those who are saying that, I have opinions. Well, of course. But mine are based on professional experience, okay, education, training, all right? I'm just not taking a side because I choose a side depending upon how I feel. That's what the idea of the expositor is. And I've told you, I'm using my training, my education, my experience to give you the best explanation of things that I can. It's not just off the top of my head because I want somebody to follow me for clicks or whatever else, okay? So just be aware of that. All right. Boy, this is really moving fast. I'm not going to talk about any specific people now. I'm just looking for generalities, questions. Yeah, Duncan Bates, people should remember COINTELPRO. Do not think the FBI does not still have operations like that. Oh, they absolutely do. Absolutely do. So that's very true. Potter, your background is shady to say the least. Look, I'm glad you brought that up, okay? No, it's not shady. Yes, I was into plural marriage as part of the early Mormon church when I was Catholic actually before. Converted to the Mormon church in 1971. But like I do everything, I studied, I looked into it, and I found out some problems. And one of those was that they had left some of their earlier principles. Well, at any rate, yeah, okay, yeah, boy, the idea of having, some other grown women around. A lot of guys do it on the side, they. And in the police department was happening all the time. They had their girlfriends. You'd catch them, out, even though they were married and stuff like that. But I did it in such a way that it went against the public face of the Mormon church, and they didn't like that. So they started giving me problems. So my shady past has to do with relationships with women. Grown women. No kids. Grown women. Took responsibility, had kids with these ladies. We're all basically still a close family, even though we're not involved in that anymore. I married another lady by the name of Carol who died from cancer in 2008. She was actually very special, and I'll just say that. Shady? No, that's the only thing you'll ever find in my background. And if having sex with grown women is all you're going to talk about, like you're trying to get Trump on, boy, usually when people accuse you of things like that, they've committed adultery or some heinous sexual act themselves. In my view, and I'm saying it publicly, I don't think sex is a sin. I think that there's actually a more libertarian view of it. I understand the history of marriage, where it came from, and you people that make those accusations know nothing. All you're about is trying to negate what I'm talking about. If you want to talk about people with bad sex backgrounds, go look at, General Petraeus. I wonder how you feel about General Petraeus, or General Eisenhower, or JFK, or Clinton. Okay? So I imagine this is going to be that's my daughter. Yeah, one of my daughters. She just texted me and says, "At least you were honest about it." Exactly. No, I was never involved in deceit or fraud or trying to take advantage of somebody other than, being with a good-looking woman. All right, okay, that's true. Now, today, after all that I've been through, I put my family through some horrible stuff trying to defend the rights of people to keep the government out of their personal business. That's what I was about. And it was a horrendous task that I put the family through. They all understood what I was doing, but it did weigh on us. It broke us apart. It actually did. Carol was the only one that stood with me. Okay, so. But I can't blame them for that. I mean, it's like in combat. You get out there and some people are going to have to, they just can't take it. They drop off. The kitchen gets too hot. I don't hold it against them. I wish they had kept my kids closer to me, sure. But in all that I've done, that's the only thing you'll ever find. Sorry, that's all there is. And I've been open about it. I've been a public figure since 1978. None of that's hidden. Now, other people have said, well, gee, you weren't in the military. You're claiming you were in the military. Oh, yeah, I was. Okay. I have all, and I'm not here to prove that. I've done it several times. I'm not going to do it again. No, I wasn't, I wasn't some great, decorated combat soldier or anything. I had a very lackluster career. But I was there and I saw things happen. I was very involved in some intelligence operations, some tactical operations, other things. I rubbed elbows with people in the CFR. I've been there. I've seen some stuff, and I went through all of the required ticket punch schools to make it to lieutenant colonel. So take it or leave it. I'm not here to prove myself to you, but I am going to say it's not a shady background, okay? Because I was upfront about everything. Every woman that I had a contact with, the other women knew about it. Now you might say, well, that's a harem. That's what the Muslims do. No, because they had their freedom. They had their liberty. They decided to be with me. Do you understand that? What kind of force did I have? I wasn't a member of any of these little cultic groups. I never joined any of the groups. The closest I came was a political organization run by a guy by the name of Alex Joseph. I keep saying Jones. It was a political organization. Yeah, he was a polygamist. Sure he was. But the idea there was politics. Now, he had some shady things. And after I found out about those, I said bye to him. There was a guy in Canada that some people say, oh, you had ties with this guy. Well, not really. That situation was because I was working with a psychiatrist at the time. I was typing up his memoirs, his memos. And it had to do with this guy, and I met him, and we kind of talked, and we got to know each other. Not good friends. There were some problems with him. And then there was another guy. I might as well tell you this story, because all of this has been adjudicated. There was a guy here in Utah named Tom Green, and yes, he did what I'll call it out. He took some juveniles as wives. Wrong. It's wrong to do. I've heard all the arguments. It's wrong. Okay. The women, however, were grown by the time they came after Tom Green, but somehow they got him in trouble, not his wives, but the state. Even though I think they were all like in their 20s at this point. But they went after Tom Green, and eventually they sent him to prison. But it was a witch hunt of sorts in a lot of ways. But I'll just tell you, I was with an undercover informant. He didn't know that I knew that's what he was, but I knew it. I was with an undercover informant for the state, actually for a county prosecutor, when several of us had a meeting with Tom Green to discuss his legal situation. And Tom Green said to me in this meeting with this undercover informant sitting right next to me, I said, well, Tom, I don't understand why you took these young girls. Why did you do that? I mean, I know they're grown now, but why on earth? What attracted you? What were you doing there? Why on earth would you do that? By the way, for those of you who think that I haven't done anything about stopping pedophiles, I won't tell you the whole story here. But at any rate, Tom Green says to me, he says, "Well, God told me to do it." I said, "Okay, Tom. Well, only God's going to get you out of it." And God didn't. He went to prison. That's all I'll say about that. Oh, another one. The bombing thing. When I did my Boston bombing exposition in 2013, there were members of the IC that didn't like what I was saying. So they had some members attack my military career. First, accusing me of never having been in the military, and then saying, "Oh, I never made it past lieutenant." They couldn't get their story straight because they couldn't get. There were a lot of reasons. They were out to defame me, not to really find the truth. It's typical, like they're doing to Jim Jordan now, making things up or twisting information. Okay, that's what they were doing. Well, there was a situation that came out where I was accused of conducting a bomb hoax at Tooele Army Depot. You go look this up too. And I've talked about this story before, but those who say, "Oh yeah, you've got a shady past. You were a bomb hoaxer when you were at Tooele Army Depot." Well, let me tell you the story about that. I came to work one morning. I was basically the provost marshal. There was a staff provost marshal who kind of ran the whole depot complex, which included 5 other depots. And then there were individual provost marshals at each of those depots, and I was the one at Tooele. And so that's kind of like a chief of police. But on the military side, there was also a civilian chief of police who controlled the federal police force, okay? I think we had, if I remember, about 200 federal police officers that worked for me. At any rate, so I come to work one morning, and I always came in early. And I'd been there for a couple hours, and the desk sergeant comes out and says, "Sir, they found a bomb on one of the chemical storage igloos in the south area." South area at Tooele is where they kept the largest chemical weapons storage depot in the world. There was also a thing there called the Chemical Agent Munitions Disposal System. It was the first one of its kind, which I was involved in planning for, which was designed to destroy chemical munitions, the only one in the world like it. The north area of the depot was the conventional weapons storage depot and the maintenance area for a major maintenance facility for the Army. So at any rate, after the desk sergeant told me that, I went down to the south area, got into the exclusion area where this incident had taken place, and with the on-duty officer in the south area, we checked this thing out. It was a wire that came from a battery, and it went onto an igloo door, and there was what looked like plastic explosive that was on the door. That's what it looked like. But I had been an electrician. I'm not a bomb expert. I don't claim to be. As a matter of fact, I showed my going away present from Tooele here, I don't know, about a year ago, maybe not that long ago. It's a plaque. It's a caricature, and it shows some of these incidents, and this was one of them. I'm not a bomb expert, but what occurred is that we looked at that, and having been an electrician, I'm saying, this doesn't look like a real bomb. I mean, the circuit's not completed. There are all kinds of problems here with this. I've got a hunch that this was a hoax, probably perpetrated by an electrician for whatever reason. So I said, "Stay here," and I went up and I got a hold of the contractor in the area. Now, what was going on in the south area is they were doing a massive upgrade, security upgrade, seals on the igloos, all kinds of things. Upgrading the entire south area. So it was a massive construction project costing thousands upon thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. It was massive. And because this bomb had been found, we had to evacuate the entire south area, and they went up to where the EOC was. That's the Emergency Operations Center. Everybody's moved up past there. In other words, the entire south area was shut down. This was about 7:30 in the morning. I get there, I see this, I'm pretty sure it's a hoax, so I run up to the EOC where everybody is, and I call in for the major contract foreman, supervisor, whatever. He comes over, and I say, do you know anything about this? And he goes, "Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, this electrician did it. And I said, can you call him over here? And this electrician comes over, and I read him his rights, and I said, do you want to talk? And he says, yeah. And I said, okay, well, what did you do here? And he says, well, you've got this federal police officer that's just a jerk, and I hate his guts. This is him talking. This is this guy. And he says, and, so I just thought I'd teach him a lesson. I made this little bomb thing, and when he was driving past, I was going to say, hey, dork, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to blow up your igloo. And I said to him, well, first of all, you're under arrest, okay? But I got to tell you this, okay? That was about the dumbest ass thing you could ever do, because he is totally within his job description that before you could blow that door, he could fill you full of bullets from his, I think that guy was carrying an M60 machine gun at the time, but it was at least an M16, fully automatic. I said he could have blown you away, made you look like a piece of Swiss cheese, and been totally exonerated for having done it. So I headed back down to the area. We were collecting the evidence. I called the EOC. I said we had made an arrest and we were gathering the evidence. And the commander of the depot gets on the radio and he says to me, Lieutenant Potter, I want you to put that bomb back on the door. We're going to play this to the hilt. I went, what? Every moment that you kept that depot shut down, it was costing the government money and, of course, the contractor. And I went, I'm not having anything to do with this. What the hell's going on? I went back up to the EOC. The commander of the depot was back with the commanding general of DARCOM, a major general. That's who Tooele worked under. And they were trying to make a false flag out of it. They had already called the EOD, the Emergency Ordnance Disposal, from Fort Douglas to come down, and they were going to have them dismantle the bomb. Well, why? They wanted to play it to the hilt, a false flag, so that they could present that to Congress or whoever, the American people, about how efficient the Army is and all this stuff. He wouldn't talk to me. We had a suspect. We had dismantled the thing. We knew what was going on. Everybody could go back to work. No, he wanted to keep the depot closed. I went over to the staff provost marshal, a full colonel, and I said, I want nothing to do with this. I'm out of here. He says, I don't blame you. So I'm going back to the north area, sir. He said, okay. I went up there. Later, the commanding general tried to sue the contractor. He kept the depot closed for the whole day. Remember now, I had this thing solved, suspect in custody, evidence in custody, no later than 0900 hours. The commander kept the depot closed for the rest of the day and then tried to charge the contractor for the entire amount. Oh, he deserved getting charged for that first 2 hours or however long it would take for people to get back to work. But the commander kept that depot closed all day. Then tried to sue the contractor for it. Well, guess what happens? Lieutenant Potter gets called into court to testify for and in behalf of the defense contract, or the contractor that was doing the business. In essence, I testified against the commanding officer of the depot. And I was told by the judge not to embarrass the government. And that's when I found out that the government deserves to be embarrassed when it fucks up. So all of you people that say that I have a shady background, go to hell and don't come back here. All right? Go to hell. All right, let's see what else is going on. Wow, an hour and 30 minutes. This has gone on longer than I planned on. I am never covering that subject about my background again. Do you understand me? I don't owe you guys anything. I was a lieutenant colonel in the Army with a top secret SCI. The Army knew everything about me. I had my TSSCI until 2006 or 7, somewhere in there. I left the Army in 2004. Go shit in your own nest, okay? All right. For all the rest of you who are logical, reasonable, decent people, thank you for coming today. You know, I appreciate you. That little tirade there wasn't against all of you, of course. I know about the trolls. I understand what they're doing. I appreciate you for being here. God bless you. God bless yours. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the Second American Revolution. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, your situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. And aren't we lucky to have President Trump with all of his troubles, all of his problems, all the things? I think he sees what's right. I think he's trying to do the right thing. We go into all that. You know how I feel about it. Hold his feet to the fire. But God bless President Donald Trump. And may the Spirit of the Lord descend upon him, giving him the spirit of discernment as the dews from heaven, that he will do the righteous thing. Know the difference from the right from the wrong, and have the courage to do the right thing. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I probably should have taken more comments off the chat, but, you know, yeah. Let's try this one. There's a possibility I will have a guest. I don't want to say much about it. A guest in the next couple of weeks. He's trying to work out some things. But he will be a very interesting person. No, I won't tell you his name. Probably not even during the interview. But he will definitely be of interest to everyone. That I can guarantee. Just listening to him. You don't even have to know who he is. Just listening to him and what he has to say. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Until next time, we'll see you.